meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. We'll forget all the trouble. Minutes, February 27th. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I had a chance to review them. I had no additional comments. I'd move that we approve them as submitted.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
Yeah, and I'm abstaining because I
You're
wasn't,
abstaining
There.
because you were abstained from the meeting.
exactly.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous, so moved. Next up, request for determination of applicability. First up, James and Marianne Ware, 186 Gansett Road, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to install utilities within existing driveway.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this, staff is recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous, so moved. Next up, Steve
Benoit?
Benoit, 143 Oyster Pond Road, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to upgrade to a Title V septic system.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous, so moved. Next up, Diane Martin, 12 Ambet Avenue, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to upgrade to a Title V septic system.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous, so moved. Next up, Newton Gresser, 72 Loop Road, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to upgrade to a Title V septic system.
Again, Mr. Chairman, we're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah. Question, the leach field on that, where will that be located?
Front of the house, Courtney, between the house and the road.
Okay.
All those big rhododendrons are coming
No
out.
question, no further questions.
I was waiting for that. That's your neck of the woods.
That's right.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
I need to see the rhododendrons come out.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous, so moved. Next up, continued hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up is a continued hearing, as I said, Nathan Holcomb, 270 Sepoisset Road, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to construct an addition, garage, mudroom, screen room, deck, gravel terrace, expanded driveway, 4-foot wide mulch path, a wash station, dry wells, invasive species management / restoration, and all associated excavating, clearing, grading, and landscaping. Good evening.
Oh, thanks. Mike. Do you need that set up?
Yeah, I have the plan on.
Okay, as soon as you move it, it's gonna wake up.
May I ask a question? Was this heard last week?
Yes, it
Yes.
was, Betsy.
Who was in charge of taking notes last week?
Steve, I told you Steve didn't take notes.
All right, hold on.
That's all right. I know
If
from the
you
minutes.
were here.
I know from the minutes who was here.
Yes, and Peter was here as well. So you can take minutes for. Oh, Kevin, don't laugh. We'll put you in charge of notes next time.
I can stay away from this.
Look at Steve.
Stay away from that.
Steve, the
can't write.
password's right on there.
Oh, up here. I think I will. This happened
And you
last
didn't think we
time.
needed
Oh, there it
Brendan?
is. Yeah? I don't know why it shows up as the F, but.
You'll be a pro before you know it.
Like it or
Okay.
Teach me
not.
how to take notes after the meeting.
I'd be happy to, Steve. I had trouble
I'd rather
myself.
be informed than corrected.
So,
All
I'm Mark Manganello with LEC Environmental Consultants here on behalf of the property owner. Last week, we presented this project. I think 4 of you heard it. Betsy, you weren't here for it, but essentially, I think the commission was generally supportive of the project. We were hung up on 2 issues. Number 1 was providing shrub plantings, 2,000 square feet as mitigation for the work in the outer portion of the buffer zone. We have added that to the plan. That's shown in green here. And the other concern was related to the gravel terrace and the shape of that, as to whether or not it was realistic to expect that it would actually be constructed like that. So we modified the plan very slightly in that area, just to kind of round off one of the awkward points that was here. And in speaking to the property owner, he believes that with the rinse station right here, that kids and others making their way to the deck, stairs of which are right here, will actually utilize this in the shape that it's proposed at. And it is outside the 50-foot buffer zone, complies with the regulations, and we've provided mitigation for it. So if you'd like me to go through any other parts of the project, I'd be happy to, but that's really the revisions that we've made.
Mr. Chairman, yes. Mark, thank you for revising the plan to add the mitigation plantings along the wetland. And those mitigation, the green, just to outline, is the mitigation required for the additional hardscape and impervious surface within the buffer zones, correct?
Correct, there's
Yeah.
an increase of 988 square feet, so by regulation, we're to provide a 2-to-1 ratio.
The only concern I have, Mark, is the use, your proposed plantings include the winterberry and the meadowsweet, which are great. And then you have Virginia rose and pasture rose, but you don't give me a count for any of them unless you did and I missed it somewhere.
No, we didn't specify exactly how many
Okay.
of each we would use. I mean, I think the idea was equal parts in essence.
Yeah, but it's like a little rose heavy, so we might just switch out one of the roses for another kind of appropriate buffer planting, and then do an equal mix of all 4 of them.
All 4, okay.
More or less, just so, and not to pick on you, and not saying that your company would do this, but I have seen many years ago where, oh, well, we have 2, and then the rest would be rose, so, yeah, so, it will just, to clarify, it would be, we'll probably just pick one of the rose species. If you have a preference, tell me now, and then we'll add another buffer appropriate and do an equal mix of 4.
Okay, let's
That
stick with the
sound-
Virginia,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then, just to clarify, the rest of the removal of the invasives, you're still proposing the meadow-type area to be mowed twice, every 2 years, was it?
Yes, once every 2 years.
And once every 2 years?
Yep.
Okay.
You okay with that?
You know, it's a stretch, like I said, usually we do want more shrub species in that area. We usually don't allow for the mitigation to be used in invasive areas, but this site is predominantly invasives. So I think the mitigation around the wetland is a good thing. I know Mark's argument that the meadow is gonna increase the value as opposed to the invasives, but the invasives do offer a level of habitat value that the meadow's not gonna be able to, so cover, somewhat of a food source. So normally staff would like to see more shrubs in these areas as opposed to just a meadow. But I stated that at the last hearing, so. And other than that, if he can use the patio that way, Mark, and they can construct it that way, go for it. I think it's a bit awkward, but that's me.
So when it comes to time, we can just make a note about the equal,
Yes, I have already done that, and that'll be a finding in a special condition. We'll switch the pasture rows for a different species, and then equal mix. And that would be in that green area
correct,
around the wetland.
right? Anything else?
No.
Courtney,
No questions.
Kevin?
Just out of curiosity, are you
Oh, no, go ahead.
certain about, not certain, do you think this is a pretty good representation of the wetlands?
What do you mean?
The boundary, you mean?
Well, the boundary that you show.
Oh,
I mean, going out on the site,
yeah, I know.
Hey.
I
It's
know.
hard.
Believe me, I know. Yeah, it is. You know, I've seen it with some water in it. We didn't just, you know, find the low spot out there. We actually looked at the soil, so there are hydric soils in that area. As soon as you get outside of that area, there are very obvious non-hydric soils. So I'm confident that's an accurate delineation.
okay. And if you have some money kicking around from your client, you could throw in a few more shrubs.
I will let him know that that's something that you'd like to
Thank
see.
you.
Good. Jen, you had something else?
Just, the two trees in the right of way,
Yep.
are we gonna leave them in the right of way like that, or?
I mean, we'd prefer to. I think Mr. Holcomb has done his due diligence on his sort of, I guess I'll say, rights to the right-of-way. And he believes that he can put them there. He doesn't think there's any chance that his neighbors are gonna have a problem with it because it's sort of an old country road. No one's gonna wanna make the road wider. And the landscaping that's gonna be done is gonna be viewed as an improvement, so we'd like to put them there.
Does anybody, okay. All right, I mean, the mitigation requirements are on, for trees are on his property, again, it's just taking out all of that invasive, which is a good thing, but replacing it with meadow is just kind of,
Insects like meadows.
what?
Insects like meadows.
Yes, they do.
Steve?
Thank you. The reason for the meadow was to decrease the amount of insects, particularly ticks. And
I'm thinking of butterflies and bees.
okay, I'm just restating something from an earlier
And ticks
presentation.
actually aren't insects.
Oh, I'm sorry, ticks aren't insects.
No, this meadow area is not meant to be used by the residents there. They've had Lyme disease in this house. They're not gonna go anywhere near that meadow when it's got long grass, because that's perfect tick habitat.
Yes,
Perfect
it
tick
is.
habitat, yep.
Ticks are not insects.
Mark, would
But,
your,
but ticks are not insects.
They're not,
No,
they are
arachnids.
spiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark,
Well,
would
they're
your,
arachnids. They're a different group of different group of arachnids.
would your client will probably, condition that there's a single rail fence along that meadow, so there's, not, you know, weekly mowing of the meadow area? Okay?
Yeah,
It's
I
something
mean,
that's normally done.
I understand the concern with that. Topographically out there, mowing that with a conventional lawnmower is basically impossible. There's remnants of stone walls out there, it sort of dips and dives. It's not anything that anyone would want to have as a lawn area, certainly. I understand your point is that if they're fearful that it's tick habitat, they're gonna wanna just constantly keep mowing it. But, you know, he's never gonna get a certificate of compliance if after 3 years, there's no meadow. And
I
there's certainly
understand
gonna be monitoring required on an annual basis to demonstrate that the planting plan is successful.
Single rail fence
Around the perimeter of the lawn,
around the perimeter of the meadow. Yes, so lawn, meadow.
Mitigation.
Essentially where the
Dots are.
green stops.
No, where the dots are.
Did the dot stop?
Where all the dots stop.
Talking about a fence
like
between,
here.
between the meadow and the
Lawn.
lawn.
Yes.
In the roadway?
No.
Yeah, well, okay, I know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Not up there.
And they may not decide to do that, but they may.
That's probably not gonna happen. You know why that is?
What is?
Of the fence. They don't mow the mitigation area.
Oh, yeah, I understand the concern.
Just,
I just don't think that's something they're gonna try to do under these circumstances, and the certificate of compliance process, you know, that's the commission's opportunity to enforce the order of conditions. So if we, you know, go for a certificate of compliance after 3 years and the meadow's not there, then he's stuck until that meadow is there.
Can I continue, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Yeah, this was an interesting project for me, because I found the invasives to be so intense, I'll say, that finding the wetland became, you know, a challenge, even in this frozen weather where it's probably much easier. And then the control of it, and then after talking to Jen, I was concerned, I certainly didn't want to establish a precedent about this, but the removal of this is highly advantageous overall, I believe. The part about the right-of-way has always confused me. I worked in another municipality, and the fire department would never allow this. I mean, if they have a right-of-way, it's the right-of-way, you know, and they believe that emergency vehicles need reasonable access under, you know, any deeded road. But here, this is not the first example that I've come across where people have, you know, obliterated essentially the right-of-way, except for a narrow path. So it seems to be a precedent in the community, and I'm not uncomfortable with that. I understand expanding of the plantings, which I would hope would continue to expand in an unmowed area anyway, especially the roses. So I have no further questions. Just needed to say that.
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you. Mr. Byrd?
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Jen, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, taking under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. One abstention as
No, I'm not saying anything.
previously stated.
4 votes.
No, because I'm
Is
not,
enough?
You're not on the quorum. She
I'm
doesn't
not
need to
abs-
abstain.
No, no, no.
I'm not abstaining, because if I'm on the quorum and I abstain,
Yeah,
it's
I
at-
heard
it
it.
says a negative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Orders of conditions, Town of Falmouth, care of Greg Frazier, Harbor Master, number 0, Town Landing Road, Falmouth, Mass, from 3/13/19. That's not accurate.
That was when it was
Thank you, Mark,
originally
and thank you for
before
this.
us, maybe. No, that
Appreciate
isn't
it.
right.
Mr. Chairman, this is the boat ramp.
Yeah, this was from February 27th, the dates are wrong. Okay.
Which boat
What
ramp
was
is
that?
this?
What do you mean the dates are wrong?
It says 3/13/19.
It means it needs to be voted by 3/13, that's what that means.
Okay,
you.
not the meeting.
No, that's not the meeting date.
I'm
That's
taking
the-
I
notes.
stand corrected.
That's the last date you guys can actually
I
vote it.
fell for
Well,
this.
let's
That's what you
wait
have
then.
to vote it by.
Ooh.
Learn something new every day.
It's always better so she can get it
I
out.
just wanted to include her, you know, she
likes
feels kind of lonely over there.
Guys, this boat ramp, biggest thing, cofferdam. I mean, the boat ramp, it has to be repaired. It's really bad up there.
Which boat ramp is this? I'm just
Sea Pit.
curious.
Off of Sea Pit Landing, Wilcoit Bay,
Okay,
by Nichols Road.
yep.
Yeah.
Edwardsville, yeah.
They have installed boat ramps, without cofferdams in town. This is a shallower area than Megansett. They didn't Megansett. They had a problem laying the one in Green Pond. I always advocate for a cofferdam because I think it's more expensive. They sometimes say it's a little bit more damaging, but I think you get a better product out of the deal, but, It really
I
is
believe
up to
so.
you. They're going to relay out the shellfish, and abide by the time of year restrictions under Division of Marine Fisheries.
So you're advocating,
No, I'm just saying it's, and they said that the contractor may opt to have a coffer dam.
all right, this is in lieu of the silk curtain that they were proposing?
They're proposing the silk curtain,
Yeah.
which has been done before, instead of a coffer dam.
Okay.
I mean, we could go out there during construction, if there's a lot of silt, we can require them to install one, if that's how the board would like us to handle it. We're gonna require them to work in, basically on either side of low tide. So, how many days did he say it would take them? He didn't say it
Couple
would
of
take them
days.
long.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Because they're not changing, they're not
No, I
extending it
don't-
much.
I
I-
think it shouldn't be that big of a deal.
I think what they're proposing, I don't think it's critical that there be a silt, you know, a coffer dam in this. But, you know, obviously if they start work on it and the conditions justify it all of a sudden, then they gotta do it.
And we're comfortable with the elevations they've drawn?
Yeah. I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna set our own
I
dial?
think they've made that mistake once, they're not making that
I-
mistake
Right,
again.
exactly.
That's good to hear.
Noted.
I mean, do you have concerns about it?
No.
Anything else we should add? Okay.
I'll move to accept as discussed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept as discussed.
Yeah, we'll do a pre-construction with them, silk curtains, time of year
Standard.
restriction,
Yeah.
really at the shellfish, same conditions we put on it. I mean, this is not the first boat ramp we have conditioned, and
Sometimes we have trouble and sometimes we don't.
sometimes we don't, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous, so moved. Next up, Shelby and Janet Madari, 4
Bye,
Nichols
honey. Have a nice night.
Road,
Good to see you.
East Falmouth, Mass. This is they called it an extension to the dock on, that they've come before us. I think this is the third time,
Yep.
Yep.
Right next door to the last item.
right next door.
Right next door to our boat ramp, yes.
And they were endorsed by some local shell fishermen, so that's positive. I mean,
What was that?
Some local shell fishermen endorsed this.
And some residents, neighbors.
Some neighbors opposed, some residents supported it. There is no public benefit in enlarging this dock. It is an enlargement of the structure in a velocity zone. Although it is not going seaward, it is still an enlargement of the structure in a velocity zone. It's just going seaward, and if you look at it, it is, I mean, they're not only extending it out, they're raising it up. And staff was not convinced of their public benefit argument.
but the raising is, necessary, correct?
Well, if you,
To get the clearance.
if you allow for the extension, yes. If you allow for the extension to the top of the seawall, then raising the structure higher in the air is required, yes.
Yeah,
One, for public access, and two, because that's the height of the wall.
it's a trail. Yeah,
No, that's the height of the wall.
right.
And other than that, there's no change. It's not
Correct.
enlarging. You know,
It is
we
enlarging
determined
the
that
structure.
it fits what was permitted.
Courtney, it is enlarging it because you are extending that ramp and you're raising it. So yes, in staff's opinion, you are enlarging it. Their argument is they're not going any further seaward in the velocity zone, but they're still enlarging it in the velocity
No,
zone because the velocity zone
I
extends.
I understand that,
But
but,
it's seasonal,
but
so.
what I'm looking at is the kind of practical thing.
Well,
You've got a
yeah.
ramp that comes back
know.
down and lands on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're gonna take that out, and you're gonna have a structure that goes all the way to the seaward.
Straight shot.
So therefore, people don't have to go down, go across the thing and up. So, you know, I don't personally see, in this particular thing, and I think you can make findings that are site-specific, that, you know, this is not
Doesn't really have an
really a
adverse effect.
heartthrob thing.
Right.
And it
Does it need
seems
to have a
as though
positive?
the objections
Does it
of
need to have a
the
positive?
neighbors who have objected to the project object to the very idea of their having a pier there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Right.
wouldn't matter what they did.
Right.
Well, I mean, the pier that's there now has a valid order of conditions.
That's what I mean.
The pier that's there now,
Yeah.
it had a valid order of conditions.
So they just wanna
I
modify
think
it.
the original neighbor concern was, one, it hadn't been installed in a number of years, and two, it was installed on the wrong side of that boulder on the property.
Right, right.
But the order of conditions was issued back in 94, 98. I mean, it was in the mid to late 90s, the mid-90s that this order of conditions was issued, so do we have heartburn that they put it on one side of the boulder or the not? No, but the chapter 91 license said they have to put it this way, so they were able to get a chapter 91 license. It wasn't abandoned. It has a valid order. My concern as staff is to, you know, keep you focused on the regulations, and that's what I'm trying to do. If you'd like me to make findings
Well,
to do that.
in other words, can we say that they have to go and modify their 91 license?
I believe they're gonna have to.
Huh?
I believe they're going to have to.
Okay, well,
All right.
let's tell them that that's a requirement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a requirement of any dock, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my only issue was the mitigation, or, you know, the pre-planted,
Yeah, so they're gonna have to,
that has to get reallocated.
Because there was a new path.
yeah,
So-
well, you're gonna need a new path.
Because it's not gonna land on the,
They were gonna shift, they were proposing to,
it's not gonna land on the stairs, it's gonna land next to the stairs. So the stairs will still be usable to go to the beach.
Yeah.
we need to
Okay.
require more mitigation because they've extended the, I mean, do we want
I just as soon keep quiet about the whole,
I think if they move it,
That'd be fine.
reallocate it, whatever verb you wanna use, or it's, we just don't want them to reduce it.
I want a new plan showing the path though, through that then.
Okay, how do you guys feel?
I'd make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Town of Falmouth, care of Jim McLaughlin, DPW, 164 Turner Road, Falmouth, Mass. This was that, the bog.
Culvert.
Culvert, thank you.
Interesting sleeving technique, I thought it was.
Very interesting.
You're gonna be seeing a few more of those.
I bet we are.
Yeah,
Great system until the Galvy rots away, but we'll deal with
Yes.
that. and-
Or the internal structure
right.
that supports the
It
tubing.
needs to be,
Wood.
done under direction of the, shellfish, the herring warden. The time of year. How did he say they were gonna do this? They're going to,
A two-day job.
they said it was only gonna be, what, a half a day?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're gonna just,
They can do it before the fish come. Fish are gonna be there pretty soon.
Yeah, we
I'm
just,
sure there's a time of
they
year.
can stop the water, so they'll dam the water up, drop the water level, push the sleeve through, redo the road.
I mean, the intrusion's gonna be
But I don't think they
minimal.
can do, they can't do it when the fish are going.
No, they can't. They'll be able to do it if the fish are going under the direction of the herring warden. So. Yeah, I know.
Half
Well,
the day.
okay.
It's completely blocked now.
No, I know. I've been there several
Oh.
times.
I'm sure.
Okay, I'll make some conditions, we'll go out there, meet with them, so.
That whole area has to be redone. That whole section of.
Mr. Byrd?
I will move to accept the order as discussed.
figure it
Second.
out.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous. So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Nope, I have something.
Oops.
I know you're all glad that I'm back. Speaking of herring,
While you were away, we instituted a new time limit of 15 seconds.
speaking of herring, Chuck's giving a talk about all the herring runs in the town. It's a very good talk. I've heard it, and I'll go again on Tuesday night at 7:30 at the library.
Okay.
7:30?
Tuesday night at 7:30. Also put noon on April 29th.
Tuesday, 7:30, library. And that's all, the history of the herring run, excuse me.
No, it's all, talks about all the herring runs in the town.
Oh,
It's very nice. And Thursday, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this, maybe you mentioned last week, there's a CPC meeting, like the one we went to last time,
Okay.
in the library.
Right.
Dad, you mentioned that?
I had not mentioned that. Thank you.
Welcome. And then,
What time is it?
This is for applicants. The meeting is for people who,
oh, only for applicants?
well, that's the purpose of the meeting.
I thought it was to, usually those meetings, this yearly meeting is for people to have ideas for
Okay, yeah,
things
that,
should be.
I'm sorry, I don't want to limit the people who would
Oh.
attend that meeting, but, right.
What time is it?
It's 7:00.
7, I think, or 6:30?
I'm sorry.
we haven't adjourned yet.
I'll send it to you. I have it on my calendar.
I'll send it, yeah.
I'll make,
Yeah, or maybe you could send it to
I
all of
will.
us.
I'll be meeting with CPC tomorrow morning,
We're not
so it'll
done
be
yet.
very convenient.
April 29th, noon. Groundbreaking for Phase 2.
Where?
Really?
Yeah. April 29th at noon,
What day is that?
Monday.
now can I make a motion?
Yes,
I'll move to adjourn.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.